still coming down off of being high in the morning just to have a body at work kind of thing, and
Yeah.
expecting me to build castles over a weekend.
Yeah.
And I literally just said one day to him, I'm like, you know what? I am done. Like, I am absolutely done. And I handed him the keys to the company truck, and he just looked at me and said, "That's good because you guys are all laid off anyway. The only reason why this crew's still going is because you keep showing up for work." And I'm like, "Well, that's interesting." And then he expected me to go tell everybody they were laid off. And I'm like, "It's not my name on their check. You go tell them that they're laid off." And he wouldn't do it. So I went over and I got the rowdiest guy I had there, and I just said, "Yo, Kenny," I'm like, you are all laid off, no callback." Right? And dude lost his mind. He's like, "Why are you over here telling me this?" And I was
Yeah.
just like, I was like, "It is what it is, man. You know now." So, but yeah, and then from that day forward, and that was December 23rd. Merry Christmas. So I got laid off. Well, I quit slash laid off December 23rd. By December 26th, I already had a truck, tools, work. I just had to register a business, which I did on a computer, and I was up and running by December 27th.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't waste any damn time. I had a bunch of guys once they knew I was on my own, just came with me, and we drove out of here because this guy knew every builder around here. So I figured the only way to escape that is to leave. So I went to Toronto, which is an hour up the highway, and started framing there. And let me tell you, when you think you're good and you're on your own little bubble and you think you're king shit at Turd Mountain, when you go into somebody else's area,
Uh-huh.
you learn how good you're not. I learned
Uh-huh.
I learned a lot of stuff in that first little while. Like, just insane amount of stuff. Like, more than I could actually like focus on what I was doing without watching people around me, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I've never seen anybody do that, like, and I
So so were
go
you
ahead.
learning like by mistake, or I mean there's some errors going on, but like are you learning from other framers that are sharing information because
No, watch and learn. I never spoke
watching.
to them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the only guy I ever spoke to was, and this still blows my mind to this day, and I tell this story very often. I was framing out in Toronto, and there was a guy framing next to us by himself, and at that time he was probably in just about 60 years old, by himself,
Hmm.
and we're all young,
Strapping
just
young man.
just ready to rip somebody's head off, like compete with anybody near us. We didn't care, and this old guy, making every move count, kept catching up to us. Like, granted, he worked 7 days a week, but we would come in on Monday and be like, "What the hell?" Like, he's right there with us again. Like, what is happening? So then I started paying attention to everything he was doing, and I was watching him, and I'm like, "This guy is a freaking genius." Like, just the stuff that he was watching, I was watching him do and things like that. Like leaning out the window to cut his porch roof. Literally pulled his tape measure out, pulled one measurement, took 2 seconds. Not even, I don't even know if it was 2 seconds, but he came right back out the window again with a ridge board and nailed it right to the wall. You hear the saw going for 2 seconds. Boom, he came out with a pattern rafter, checked it, checked it, checked it. Boom, he started cutting. I'm like, is this guy a walking, talking calculator? Like, what just happened right there? Right? So then I had to know. So then one day when we all went home, I came in on a Saturday. Just I had to see what he was doing,
Uh-huh.
and he came in. It was his son would come in and help him on the weekends, but I was watching the way they were working together, and I was like, "This is money. Like, this is just it's just flowing. Every step counted. Like, There wasn't 50 trips back to the trailer. There was none of that kinds of carryings on. Everything was right there, loaded up, ready for them. You know, they framed in a way that I was just like, I need to go talk to this guy. And I did. I bought him and his son coffee, and I sat there and I had a couple conversations with them, and I was just mind blown. Just mind blown. And a lot of the stuff that I did learn, I do still use to this day that I watched him do. Can't argue it. It works, right? But that's why I keep telling guys, it's not all about being taught. Like me telling you to sit down, Junior, let me tell you, you know, how to do this. A lot of it's common sense. A lot of it's watch and learn. You know, if you have a question, ask the question. But a lot of it you can figure out if you can see it. You know, especially myself, because that's the way I learn. You know, I have ADHD. So for somebody to tell me how to do something is irrelevant. It's just squirrel, right? But if I see somebody do it, then I'm like, okay, well, I could do that. Now, if I can do that and implement this, let's go. You know, see how this works. So that's just the way I can learn, and that's the way I've taught myself to be able to pick up different processes from that. Is I have to physically see it happening in front of me. So now I'm a little bit better with it. I can concentrate a little bit, but I'm still, you know, squirrel. And I'll come back to it. I'll come back in like 5 minutes. It happens on my live videos all the time. You know, like I'll be talking like we are right now, and I'll read a comment, and I'll come back 10 minutes later, like I never dropped it off, and just keep on rolling. So it's a little odd, but got to make what, you know.
It sounds pretty familiar to me because I've got a buddy who's just like that. It's like 45 minutes later, he's hitting me with two things we were talking about a while ago, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, you got to look at it. You got to look at it two different ways, right? You can either look at it as a disability that you were born with, or you can look at it as you were blessed with a gift that you can now multitask really well, because you can't focus on the one thing. You have to have 50 things going on. Unless I'm hyper fixated on something, then everybody knows just don't talk to me, because I'm going to get mad. If you throw me off, well, I'm like, yeah.
This sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I think that ADHD people are, once they're on their craft, though, they're just in. It's so focused, you know.
Yeah, and it's the hyperfixation thing, right? So
the fact that I got a label at some point and was told we're different, or that people were whatever.
Yeah,
it just got a label. It's just normal.
Yeah, it's normal now because it got misdiagnosed so much in the past that now it should be called normal, right? But I don't look at it as a disability. I look at it as, you know, I'm just a normal person, and I'm really intrigued by a lot. You know, it's unfortunate that it's all at the same time, but
everything all at once.
Yeah, exactly. Like I did it today too, and I even caught myself, and I was like, did I finish doing what I was doing? And I had to go check on myself, you know, and I was just like, oh well, you know, at least I remembered, you know, I got her done. But it happens. But you know, I don't look at it as a disability or anything. I just look at it as another way. You know, I just learn differently.
And it probably makes you a good teacher for teaching that trade, because you're visual.
I think so. And I think it has to do with my previous career being in art, 3D art, and things like that, 3D animation and things like that, where I'm actually able to kind of foresee what the outcome should be before I start building. Okay, so that helps me a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So like, and it's hard for me to explain. Like sometimes me and Ryan will get like a full on argument sometimes where I'm like, dude, I got it. It's going right now. It's good. We're good. Let's just do it. And then, but you know, he wants to implement some of his own stuff, which is awesome. But when I already have it figured out, because I already hyper fixated on it and I'm good, and I figured this out, and this is the fastest possible way with the best quality outcome, I need to do it that way.
Yeah, this
And
is all something very familiar.
And then I got to just, I put my foot down and I'm like, no, watch what we do. And then it'll click why I'm doing it the way we're doing it, and, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You got to do it sometimes. You gotta, put your foot down sometimes, but.
Do you think you carry a lot from that one framer you originally were talking about there?
I wouldn't say I carry a lot. There's a lot of small little things that he did do that I did carry it for a while, and I kind of used that as the point I need to hit every time. I need to be doing it this way. But when it later down the line, when I started getting the more complicated builds and everything, and the scenario wasn't working, and I had to implement it with some of my own stuff, and now I have what I have, and I don't know what to call it. It's my way, and it works. So I'm not, it's not the best possible way, but it definitely works. Definitely makes me money. So nobody's bitched at me for the end result of my houses. So I take that as a plus as well. So
yeah, the way you're talking about the visual thing too, being able to carry a project to the end in your head for the most part, sometimes they're not all there, but dealing with, I think it's a gift, and it's also something we have to have, when you're talking to clients and stuff and they don't have that. It's so interesting because they're just, they're lost.
Yes.
And then you start waving your hands and talking about what's going on over here, and they're looking at you, and then you come back 15 minutes later with something you were talking about 20 minutes ago.
It just happened today, actually.
Yeah.
Right before we loaded the forklift up and took the container out to catch the float, I hadn't gone over the timber framing aspect of this front porch that's going to happen while we're not there, because I just don't have time for it. I'll come back and throw the roof over it. I can't commit that much time to the timber framing as much as I really, really, really wanted to do it.
Sure.
It just wasn't a smart business decision to do it. So, so me being the framer there, they wanted me to give them measurements, like exact measurements, where to stop the timber and where my framing needs to go over top of it. And I'm like, dude, if this is a timber framer, I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't. Like, if he's a timber framer, he knows what he's doing. Just make sure he doesn't exceed the ridge line of that other roof, because that's not what's wanted here. So they just wouldn't let it go. So I was really quick, and I'm like loading my container with ladders and chains and everything like that, but I'm calculating timbers and heights and everything while I'm doing this, and I left them with a number, and I'm just like, man, all right, if I don't want to hear it, if this doesn't work out, but I'm pretty sure that should end up within an inch and a half of that ridge, which will work out fine with sheeting plane. You'll be half inch down. And I'm like, okay, I gotta go. Float's coming, right? So it's like, but it's like things like that. It's just like, and I'm sorry, it just happened. So my brain just went. So anyway.
And was that on that remodel you're working on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great project. I had a blast on that project. Like,
very
like,
cool. What you like?
So used to subdivisions, right? Like, that was just insane. Like the first day when we showed up there to like price it, and I was just like, they want us to do what? Like, because when we showed up there first, when I was going there to see it first before we started pricing it, just to see the job, because I couldn't grasp the concept of what they were talking about. So I was like, we'll come out there, we'll break when we get coffee, and we'll just come swing by and we'll have a look. So there was no foundation in the ground or anything. It was just, the land and an idea that was floating in people's heads. and trying to grasp the concept of dropping 3,000 square feet